companies selling your data isn't news? Think again. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Renegade Reporters by Elissa Weissman. It was brand new at our library very recently. I brought it home, finished it up in about a night, and I'm quite happy to talk about it. Ash is a reporter. Well, sort of. She works as the news anchor at her school. Her school does a small news show called The News at 9, and Ash is the star reporter, and her friend Maya is the camera operator, and their friend Brielle is the editor. Or at least, that's how it used to be. Right now, Maya and Ash are only assistants. They help write news stories because another anchor has taken over. The reason? Well, Ash and Maya took one of the school's cameras live because they were going to drop in and interview one of the gym teachers at their school the previous year. Well, the gym teacher was in her office and was doing her makeup and dancing and singing while she didn't have a shirt on and was just wearing a sports bra. The video was shared incessantly on the internet, and that teacher was embarrassed enough that she left the school, and Ash and Maya's punishment was that they could no longer continue in their roles on the News at 9, in addition to other punishments. Well, it's not much fun being in that role, and Ash is pretty unhappy with it, and very unhappy with the job that her successor anchor is doing. So Ash suggests that she and Maya and Brielle create their own news show, independent of the school. They can film it in Ash's basement, Brielle can edit it, they'll get their parents' permission to post it and give them the right to inspect the final product before it goes online. And they all agree that this sounds like a pretty good idea. So they scope out the basement and find a good filming area. And because their school has school accounts for Van Ness software, Brielle can continue editing their projects using that same software that she uses for the News at 9. Ash's younger sister gets involved too. She decides that she can be a scout reporter, that she can help bring in stories for Ash to report on. And she brings in their first story, that her friend Lucy had a bike stolen from a local playground. And so Ash reports on it, and they interview Lucy, and they visit the playground and interview a mother there, and Maya records it all, and Brielle edits it, and they post it, and the result is fantastic, and it gets a fair number of views. Well, the anchor at News at 9 finds out about this whole thing and watches the report, and scoops Ash by having Lucy come in live with the news that her bike had been recovered. And he prevents her from mentioning that she was on the Renegade Reporters underground news show talking about the bike's theft in the first place. So Ash is pretty disappointed, but she's at least happy that Lucy got her bike back and that this news thing seems to be working. Well, she's less happy a little bit later because Van Ness Media has decided to promote some of the schools and children that are using their products to produce the news show, and they've listed her successor, mistakes and all, as one of their top young news producers using Van Ness software. And Ash decides she can't let this stand, and that Van Ness needs to know about the Renegade Reporters and the underground news. So she, her sisters, and their nanny, who takes care of her younger sisters, head into the city to visit the Van Ness Media headquarters so that Ash can ask why that anchor was featured and whether Van Ness would disclose the fact that they provide free software to that school. Now, one of Van Ness's big selling points is that they do not advertise in their programs. They don't advertise to the kids at all, and it's considered a major selling point for them. Well, through the course of things, At their headquarters, Ash's nanny needs to find a washroom to change her youngest sibling, and there aren't any in the main atrium for the building, and so security lets them head up to the 17th floor, I believe, to find a washroom. And while Ash is looking around, she stumbles into a room she thinks is the washroom, and it's a big high-level meeting, and there's a map of her town and the city, and there are all these dots on there, and the people at the meeting are talking about, yeah, well, we can track them using the unique content IDs in the video editing software that Brielle had been using this whole time. The company was tracking them. It was tracking kids without disclosing it. Now, stumbling onto a meeting like that isn't enough to prove anything, though. And so Ash and her friends figure out a plan to test things for themselves. With the help of Maya's older brother, who's in college and quite a programmer in his own right, they get a brand new computer, complete clean install of everything. They've cleared the cookies and the cache, and they've never gone online or searched anything with it. And they create a brand new user account for a fake student using the Van Ness Media software. They use the software to create a newsletter about pizza and plants, deciding that those are the main interests of the fake student they've created. And wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. And when they check their email, they have ads there for local pizza places and the planetarium and a coupon for it. So while Van Ness Media is not putting ads into the software it sells to students, it is tracking the data from the content they create and selling it to third parties. And the kids didn't know anything about it. And the story ramps up from there as Ash and her friends try to expose what's happening. It was fantastic. It was great. It's easy for me, someone who's been using the internet at home and school and such for 25 years at this point, or whatever it's been, to sort of understand that none of my data is ever going to really be safe anymore. That there are companies tracking every little thing I do in so many ways that I'm not even aware of. And it's easy to be sort of blasé about it, but for companies to be tracking kids inside software based on the content they're creating, holy moly, that genuinely made me a little bit worried for the future of my kids when they start using this stuff at school. But it came across as a very, very scary reality for Ash and her friends. And the way the author wrote up Maya's reaction to it and her fears from it felt just flat out compelling. It was great stuff all around. And Ash's petty jealousy towards the new anchor and his petty jealousy back, and Brielle being sort of caught in the middle between wanting to keep on with the News at 9 because she felt it was a good chance for her to gain experience to get a scholarship to a art school. It just, all of it was wonderful. The relationships between the characters were great, and it felt like there was something genuine at stake here. Many times when I'm reading these books intended for kids, I'll read it and I will think, well, the stakes aren't that high. What does it matter? I mean, yeah, okay, it's a big deal for this kid, but come on, in the real world, this doesn't matter. This mattered. It was great. And if you know someone who enjoyed Clicked by Tamara Ireland Stone, I highly recommend this to them, and vice versa. Now, this book wasn't quite perfect though, so be forewarned, there are spoilers ahead because I have to talk about the deal breakers. So, the book was great. The idea that Ash could somehow be let in to the 17th floor of the Van Ness Media building where they're having this super secret meeting about something that's probably illegal was a little bit ridiculous. Seriously, they didn't have any washrooms on the ground floor or in a less sensitive area of the building. Come on. I know they needed that setup, but it fell really, really flat. If they'd had, you know, a cleaning sign or an out of order thing or something that explained it, that would have helped a little bit. But even then, I mean, they didn't have a staff washroom they could duck into for 2 seconds, perhaps, that was on that floor. It felt a little odd. That wasn't so bad, though. The main thing that was a little bit ridiculous was the sheer convenience that Ash would run into Maria Van Ness, the founder and CEO of the company, and that when confronted by this school-age girl recording the conversation, that Van Ness would admit to everything her company was doing wrong and saying that she didn't care in the slightest because they needed to make money. I cannot believe that a company that was so invested in getting business from kids in schools would be that dumb. There is no way a CEO of a company that large that would have PR people barking in her ear all day long about the corporate identity and public image and so on would ever have a conversation like that with this kid. In the real world, she would have told Ash, you know what, I would love to discuss your points more. I'm fairly certain that's not really what's going on. Why don't you contact one of my PR people and we can talk about it at another time when I'm not taking my dog for a walk. I understand that the author needed to wrap it up, but it felt like a bit of a jump to me. The other thing is that there's a subplot of a person who has a dog that's pooping all over the sidewalks in their neighborhood, and it turns out to be Maria Van Ness, and it is the world's most pointless subplot. I understand adding stuff to flesh out the world and make it feel like that things are happening around Ash and her friends as they're on this crusade, and that's great, but it felt like a pretty big coincidence that, yeah, it just happened to be the big bad of the book who's stealing all this information from kids, and she doesn't clean up after her dog when he poops. At any rate, I still highly recommend it for the young reader in your life who might want to learn a bit about internet privacy issues and the like, or as I said, who might have enjoyed Clicked by Tamara Stone. I recommend it. Go borrow it from your local library. With that, thank you for joining me for a discussion of this book. Please like, please subscribe, and please check back to see what else I'm talking about from the Cowhat Library. Thank you. Bye now.